Wait.
Not ready? We're ready.
Yeah.
Call to order the Planning Commission meeting for October 14th, 2020. Before we get started, I'd like to welcome our new member, Austin Purnell. Not since Robert Bork have we had a controversy, so I don't think you were born back then, but it is good video. Can we get a motion to adopt this evening's agenda?
So moved.
Get a second? In favor? Aye, opposed? Let's see here, approval of the minutes from the September 9th, 2020 meeting. Does anybody have any changes or corrections or anything? Would anybody like to make a motion to approve?
I have some changes.
Okay.
On page 2, in the second paragraph, about 2/3 of the way down in the middle, it says Mr. Casio replied solid wood. I'm sorry, Caroline, maybe I misspoke. I don't think I said that, because I wouldn't say that. I'm sorry if I misspoke. On the third page,
Ron, do you have an idea what that item was?
we were talking about siding, and maybe I said something like look like wood or something like that, but I wouldn't want them
Yeah,
to
because
put
we were
wood.
talking about hardy. which
Yeah, I
looks
wouldn't
like-
want them to put wood on anything. I don't think that would be a good idea.
Okay, so like a wood look?
Yeah, I must have misspoke or something.
So let me change it to wood look.
Would look, yeah, or something. And on the third page, at the very bottom, the second from the last line, it says, he stated they shouldn't be talking about annexing. You either cross out the N and the T, because I said, he stated he should be talking about annexing and not the building. And that's it.
Anybody else have anything? Anybody like to make a motion to approve with changes made?
So moved.
Need a second?
Yep.
All in favor? Aye, opposed? Discussion and review of the 2010 comprehensive plan draft using element. The David's provided us with a kind of a chart that we can run down.
Yeah, one thing I would say, and Mr. Chandler was just asking me before the meeting started, I gave you another resilience element summary in your packets, and that was what we called an executive summary that was done by Brandy Espinola with the University of Maryland. I'm losing it. It's the like the economic development at the University of Maryland. The ones who wrote the resilience element with the grant. And she has provided a shortened version. And after reviewing it, staff, including town administrator, the deputy town administrator, Mary Bowen, and I, thought that would be the item we might want, that we would add to the comprehensive plan.
This is a thing consisting of 9 pages.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And a couple of the pages you see at the end are, basically the notes on, the sourcing. So it's actually fairly short. And, I don't know if you had a chance to read through that. The Steve Farr's version, the first condensed version we had, was a cut and paste of some of this. It's just a little bit more thorough than the original one. So that's the one that we would like to have a public hearing for in your November meeting for your recommendation to the mayor and council to amend the comp plan with its addition. Comprehensive plan, anything we do that we add to it or any changes has to be a public hearing of yourselves, and then that recommendation goes to the mayor and council. We have another public hearing for their agreeing with your recommendation or changing it or denying it before they add it to the comprehensive plan.
Well, I sure appreciate this condensed version. It's more workable and I like it. I went over it and I made some word changes that I'd like to change. Nothing serious, but on the first page primarily.
Okay.
Some of the language I thought kind of circular, not to the point.
Are we looking at the Brandy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one that has the footnotes in the back, the references.
Yes, it says draft on the front also.
Okay.
And on the first page, that down in the middle, it says, what is resilience? That copy.
Okay.
So if you will, is it okay with you guys if I just start with what I thought I'd like to change and you all can?
Go right ahead.
Okay, third paragraph down starts with climate change does not present a shortage of potential impacts. I just found the language circular and not active. I'd rather say climate change presents a host of potential impacts,
Well done, Pete. Well
not to human populations, but upon human populations. And both strike the word the, natural and developed environments, instead of the word built environments. That's what I have to say about the first sentence.
Pete, can I make a suggestion? That built environment is pretty much a accepted term, I think. That
Okay, I
works
accept
the
that.
way they do.
Okay, if that's in term of art, I
Yeah, it
didn't know.
works.
Okay, so built environments is fine. And then, the impacts will ripple throughout communities and exacerbate existing problems with the potential to cripple. I don't think it will cripple, I think it will impact. I'd rather use the word impact
Yep.
rather than cripple.
Yep.
Let's not get too dramatic here. Then down to the next sentence, the pursuit of community resilience, and then the word however is there. That's just an unnecessary word, keep it active, strike it. So the pursuit of community resiliency can be, and then take the words transformed into and just say can be a positive process to capture new economic opportunities, address socioeconomic, I don't like the word inequities. I don't want to get in that zone. I would say socioeconomic impacts and realize a safer, healthier future. So I would strike the word inequities and put the word impacts there. Does anybody have any problem with my thoughts there?
I think from my reading of it, that what they're trying to address there, I'm not arguing with them, I'm just saying what they're trying to address is that a lot of times environmental impacts, which is I think what they're getting at, falls on communities in an inequitable way.
Yeah, I know that, but see, I don't want,
I'm just trying to explain, I think, what they're getting at.
I agree with you, and I don't want to go there.
Okay, just,
I don't want to make this into some social compact. This is just dealing with climatic impact, and it does have an impact on socioeconomic people with lesser or greater stuff. Yeah, but I'm not taking that idea out. I am simply taking inequities out because I think that goes too far in that direction and using the word impacts. The socioeconomic is the word. That's the magic
I
word
get it, I'm not.
that covers the thought process. That's my thinking.
So what was that last one you want to change?
Okay, I'll read the whole last sentence again. The pursuit of community resiliency, strike the word however, can be, strike the words transformed into, a positive process to capture new economic opportunities, address socioeconomic impacts, and realize a safer, healthier future.
What paragraph was that again? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, third paragraph, last line, last sentence.
Okay.
Okay, so if I'm following you, I'll read the paragraph
Okay.
with your changes, and if anybody has anything additional. Yeah, are there more in the rest of the document, or?
Yeah, the next paragraph down, I got some more comments. Not a whole lot, just,
Okay, well, let's do this one then. Climate change presents a host of potential impacts upon human populations and both the natural and built environments.
take the word "the" out, and both natural and,
Okay? The impacts will ripple through communities and exacerbate existing problems with the potential to impact communities and economies where preparations are inadequate. The pursuit of community resiliency can be a positive process to capture new economic opportunities, address socioeconomic impacts, and realize a safer, healthier future.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, make sure I got it, that's all.
So do we all agree on that or not agree?
That's good.
In the next paragraph, the resilience element focuses on how the town of Berlin will, I would strike the word will, and say may, approach mitigating, adapting to, and et cetera. That's all I have from that paragraph. Change the word will to may.
Okay?
Everybody in agreement with that? Next paragraph, the second sentence, second line down. Community resilience is inextricably linked to the health, safety, and financial well-being of its residents. Rather than simply a capacity, I would strike those words. I don't know what that's saying. So strike the words rather than simply a capacity and just start with resilience. Resilience is a continuous process of adapting, learning, and implementing interventions to ensure, and I would strike the words, the success of all residents, and I would say minimal impacts as a result of climate change. We're back to that social statement they want to make here, and I'm just trying to get away from it. So again, I would strike the success of all residents, and I would say, for those words, minimal impacts as a result of climate change. So the sentence would read, resilience is a continuous process of adapting, learning, and implementing interventions to ensure minimal impacts as a result of climate change. That's all I have to say about the first page.
Does anybody else have anything for the first page, or you want to do it individually, or?
Do we agree on what change, or do we not agree?
Before we go any further, Dave, so are we gonna finish with this tonight? Is that the intention?
I think we can finish with this tonight, because it's a small thing to get done. That's my feeling.
That's up to you.
My only concern is that if this is what's going, I'm not sure that it's not missing something. I can't sit here I didn't look at it in that way. I can't be sure that there's something that should be in here that's not. And I don't think we have time to get over that tonight. Is there a deadline that we're dealing with, or Jeff?
We would like to have it done by the end of the year.
I'm just talking about one more time. Or if I see something, that.
It's fine, we can discuss that. The draft, the big version, are you saying you think something in this summary is in that you're not?
I'm saying that there may be something in this that I think should be in this and is not, but I can't tell you right now because I didn't look at it in that, I didn't think this was going to be, mine doesn't say draft, and I didn't know that this is, heading for the next step after tonight. I thought we were going to.
You sent us a note saying that this is under review by the Maryland.
Yeah, I got the reply back, and they
So they reviewed this, the big thing?
the
or-
big thing,
And then both of them?
the large version,
In
yes.
Worcester County also, or?
Yep, and they're both.
So if we resubmit it with something smaller, I assume it'd be rubber stamped, or would it be?
No, what we're doing is what we thought we'd do in the comprehensive plan, is have whatever summary, like we're working on now, the shorter version, and refer back to that resilience element document 2020, for more detail.
But Dave, can I ask a question? This whole resilience thing here has been brought forth by the state?
No,
Who's it been brought forth by?
by the town.
By the town?
Yep.
But the town didn't write it, right?
We were assisted in writing it.
By,
The University of Maryland, what's the
Environmental services.
environmental, economic environmental department?
and who felt the need for this in the town?
We had a grant opportunity back when Laura Allen was the town administrator. And at the time, during those budget projections that year, 2 years ago, a complete rewrite of the comprehensive plan was, not going to be in the budget. All we're required to do this year is review our comprehensive plan. So she had me ask the Maryland Department of Planning, if a resilience element like this could be added to, and we can amend the comprehensive plan anytime we want. It doesn't have to be this year.
Who gave her the idea?
I don't know who gave her the idea.
So
She gave me the idea.
how much was the grant?
20,000.
You
$20,000.
blew $20,000 on a grant for the University of Maryland for this, what I call a liberal document. Looks like more regulation and more taxation upon the citizens of this town were things that we can't afford and don't need. This whole thing about climate change, you can't deny there's climate change, but it's still up in the air about how what effect it has. I've seen no big thing in this around here, being born here in 1954, about bigger snowstorms or hurricanes or whatever. I mean, I just don't see the need for this. I've been over this thing, and it looks like more government control, more code and regulation, and more expense for the town, which I don't think we need.
You're looking at me for it.
I'm looking at everybody. I'm looking for more comments.
I agree with him. You know my thoughts on the whole thing here. It's duplication, triplication, and all kinds of all the stuff we're doing anyway. I know the climate change thing. The climate's been changing since I've been alive too. It's just we have a former president's bought two beach homes for $15 million each on the beach. He's an advocate for the Green Deal or Green New Deal or whatever it is, and the former vice president who wrote the Inconvenient Truth. He buys a big place on the Pacific Ocean. Apparently that's going to be disappearing too. Somebody's making money off of this. And I'll be like, dude, it's not me.
I sure believe that Dan could have done something different with 20 grand other than get this mess
No,
done.
we got 20 grand for this.
I'm sorry?
No, you didn't.
We didn't pay for
we
it.
didn't-
That's your tax dollars at work.
We didn't spend.
It was a
20
grant. It was a grant.
States from the
We didn't
state,
spend
from
20.
the feds.
So the grant was specifically, the request of the grant was specifically to have a resilience
Yes.
thing put into.
It was out there available. We applied, we got it.
So the government, the state government or legislature put this money out there to try to get towns to adopt these things. Is that
Yes.
what you're saying?
Yes.
And so it came from across the bridge, and it's probably needs to stay over there because this is a bunch of government control, taxation, codes, regulation. I mean, it reads like that. And the whole document, like Pete said, is shot full of social, economic. You might as well put justice in there. They were afraid to do that. But it's all the same garbage, in my opinion, that we don't need. It's going to cost the taxpayers of this town a lot of money to implement. More employees, more taxation, more codes, more regulation. I just don't get it. I don't buy it.
My first instinct was the same as yours, Newt. I don't like this kind of stuff, and they always throw in the socioeconomic and all this stuff that has nothing to do with what we should be thinking about. But when I look at this condensed version, I think that the idea of having a resiliency thought streaming through our planning in all the aspects of our departments is not a bad idea, and I don't see anything in here that mandates spending money or doing anything that we don't want to do.
Well, I agree with that. I read that, and there's nothing under law here that's mandated for us to do that I can tell, but I can see it, you know, certain entities point their fingers at it for justification to do things we really don't need, and it's gonna cost a lot of money, and for new regulations, which is the biggest encumbrance that this thing would cause.
But you're gonna fight that in the future.
Where's the new regulation?
It says in their new codes,
Where is it? Where's the new regulations? Where's the new code?
That's it, they're getting the foot in the door.
We're not signing on to anything here.
We're flipping the door.
If they want to pass a law, we're going to all have a chance to talk about it when they try to do that.
Oh,
If they try to
council also.
mandate electric cars in Berlin, you're going to have a chance to come in and say no.
So then why even go through this exercise?
Because what we're trying to do is make
plan.
people aware that resiliency is becoming something we should think about in our planning. We should be thinking about climate change and what impact it's going to have. And I think we could do without it. I agree with you. I don't think we need it. I think it's common sense. I think we'll react to whatever conditions we're
Absolutely.
faced with. I agree with you. I just as soon not have this kind of words everywhere and too much law. I'm with you. But the move is on, and I'm on a planning commission. And, it's like the move was on with the fire sprinklers in every new house. Remember? And I initiated the movement to say, why don't we as a town say, no, we're not going to require sprinklers? Why not? I mean, it's stupid. I think it's stupid. I think it caused more damage than having fire
They're
alarms.
gonna spend the next 10 years trying to rescind what they've done.
And now everybody's rescinding that stupid fire thing that we recommended to the mayor and council they not pass. But we didn't have the guts to stick up because the whole state was going down the
You're proving
road.
my point. This is an
I
exercise
am,
in utility.
I'm just telling you, I'm with you.
Right. But so why are we here wasting our time on this then when we don't really need it?
I think saying this little blurb without that inch-thick piece of garbage we read is a reasonable accommodation of something maybe we
The
already
problem
think.
is, that big document, the garbage you're talking about, if to make that, they'll say, hey, what's in there exactly?
A bunch of garbage,
That's
a
what
lot of
I'm saying.
repetitive, unnecessary garbage. I'm with you.
Something for regulators and government people to point to and say, this is what you gotta do because you guys adopted it so it must be the right thing to do.
But this is relatively innocuous.
Well, it's just not that, you're gonna adopt the whole document, not just this when you do it.
Well, Nudie, I'll tell you what, if somebody wants to make a motion, we don't need a resiliency element, I'll follow it. But I don't think we're gonna be keeping up with.
And I'll make that motion right now.
I mean, if everybody, I think some other guys ought to chip in and give us their opinions here. I'd like to hear what everybody else thinks.
And I'll say that the whole point, it was University of Maryland Environmental Finance Center is what it is.
Oh, my God.
So now, I just want to say that that's what the point of it is that to let, and they've done it for other localities, other municipalities, that it should be part of your thinking going forward
Yeah.
to have money
Yeah.
set aside in your budgets to prepare for, like, what we have, was it 2 years ago? The William Street electric plant was flooded out, burnt out that motor. Thank God we had the insurance to pay for it. But we got grant money, a lot of it, from Maryland Environmental Management, MEMA, like FEMA, but the Maryland version. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to afford the repair. And we've just completed another generator up there at that. Though that's the type of thing this is aimed at, is to be ready. Resiliency is adapting to whatever comes along. Is it a flood? Is it a hurricane?
Well,
Is it
if the town of Berlin Falls didn't spend every dime they got, then maybe we would be ready if we had a good general fund, and we wouldn't need these people across the bridge and tell us that you gotta save your money, be ready for, that everybody knows for emergencies and disasters. I mean, that's common sense.
I'm not arguing that. I'm saying
But
this
you were
is.
just talking that. That's what you were saying.
I was saying, to be ready in the future, you need to have a plan for it, and that's what this is aimed at, that's all.
Quit misusing money, buying things we shouldn't buy, and keep the general fund up, and you got her done. We don't need a multi-page document to accomplish that. We should, our city council should be doing that anyway.
I gotta say that the provision here about sea levels rising, and we have to plan for things like people in Ocean City moving to Berlin.
We're not ready for that.
I mean, it's a laugher. I mean, you
Just
know,
strike that.
digging awful deep for something to say here, and, you
You know,
know,
I like that waterfront property, but I'll be dead before it, for that even comes close to being a reality.
I mean, you know, we don't have to worry about people from Ocean City inundating Berlin, because there's only so many houses here. I mean, you know, it's just, like you said, common sense. Dude, I agree with your general thoughts, I do.
Well, the people coming from Ocean City, that's like the sky's falling, I remember as a kid, when writing a book report about acid rain. What happened to that? How about the ozone hole, what happened to that? Did somebody put a cover over it, or maybe,
No, we came up
Maybe Biden did
with,
put a lid on
with different chemicals to use for the processes that we're using the ones that did the
well, that's why, it went from
We actually-
global warming
yeah.
to climate change.
Yeah,
because
we
it's all
actually did something
encompassing.
about it.
We didn't do enough. We didn't do enough, but we did just enough. I mean,
This is a typical
This is
government
something broad.
document for people across the bridge that want more regulation, more control, more codes. It says here, they want to try to, it says something about flood insurance mandate, everybody has flood insurance, or, encourage that. Some of these people in in this community can't afford flood insurance and really don't need it. So it's going to cost money. I see money in regulation, a typical government intrusion. And I'll make a motion right now. I make a motion now that we, to scrap this document and not add a resilience plan to the comprehensive plan.
Can I say a couple things before you do that?
Absolutely.
Are we able to make wholesale changes where, let's say there was the one with the cop car, or the town cars being all electric? I don't know which one that is, E3. I mean, I have no written bold letters, in my personal opinion. Are we able to make wholesale changes?
I'm sorry,
and
you
just-
have what?
E3, that was one with the town vehicles becoming electric
And
by.
what did you say about it?
I mean, just on my notes, it just, no, was basically what I had written out.
What does it say? Because I want to see what you're saying.
Sure. So on E3, it talks about the carbon emissions for the town vehicles and trying to change to electric vehicles. So,
It says Berlin should evaluate the cost effectiveness. That's what it says.
right,
Okay. Doesn't say do it.
well, so if you look at the old one,
But is the reason to eliminate carbon emissions, or is the reason to save money on
Is why it
costs?
says it.
If the objective is to save carbon emissions, then go talk to Al Gore, don't talk to me.
But it's
But
to
if the
save
objective
money.
is to save money, then we should be looking at
Yeah,
it.
because it does save money.
but
Ron, you know that, and I know where you're getting at, that there's nothing mandated here by law or anything, but when we do our growth areas and stuff, it's a general
yeah,
idea where things should grow, and different zones should be, we do the best we can, but things change obviously. And you know, lawyer after lawyer comes in here and goes, you said this is a good growth area, this is, this is a good growth
Who
area.
came in here?
Lawyer, developer, I mean, this is like a project down the street here.
So that's why
the first
issue-
thing- That's the first thing he said. You
That's
said
what
this
you
lawyer.
said, right. But we saw, that's a document that has
But
modifications.
they'll be pointing to this just like that.
Modifications.
They'll be pointing to this, like you
Okay,
said
but
this should be
has
this
nothing but.
way. You adopted this into your plan, you better do it.
I'm just telling you, dude, what you're saying is not true. This does not tell us we have to do something. Just like Pete said.
It identifies certain things that they.
That we should think about,
So-
like Dave said.
I can think about it without having to adopt a document
Okay, well-
to the comprehensive plan, I can think about it all day
Let's just
long.
be factual about what it says.
Go ahead.
It doesn't say we have to do anything.
I didn't say they did.
Okay.
Well, I
Okay.
think the document makes us aware of some issues that perhaps we're not.
That some of us are ignorant of.
I beg your pardon?
That's some issues that some of us are ignorant of.
Well,
Well, let me ask Dave a question. Dave, so in the planning community and in other towns and municipalities and counties, is this resiliency element becoming a go-to element like the water element and the environmental elements that are so critical? Is this considered a critical element at this level of,
Not by the Maryland Department of Planning, no.
Okay.
It's not required that we have one. A water element and a critical areas element is required. But it is not required, and it could be at some point, but no, it's not required.
So if our local philosophy is that we're anti-regulation and nonsensical stuff, then I guess Newt's right. If this is not a necessity, then why go there? Why do we want to break ground in this zone of, like you said, opening doors for more regulation? Why? We don't want that, and that's not the character of this town. This town is a town of normal people who want to live a normal life and not be over-regulated. That's why I moved here. I came here because I want to live in Ocean Pines. I like Berlin because I can keep my boats in the yard. I can do what I want to do.
So I think the issue also pertains that we have this smaller one, which is going to reference this big package, which has a lot more verbiage and stuff included, including install fast charging electric vehicle charging stations in the town center and identify appropriate locations for installing charging stations throughout the town. It doesn't say let's think about it. It says
We
that
don't
what
even
we
have
should
enough
do.
parking, let alone putting charging stations in.
Well, that's on the list.
We have to maybe could use that 20 grand to buy some land, or lease some land to parking, pretty.
Host a
pretty
residential electric vehicle workshop to promote the environmental benefits and long-term cost savings of electric vehicles. So my fear is that when we look at this condensed document, it's good. It makes more sense to me, it's great. But if it just is a beginning stage that references this 100-page paper, that has a lot more, this is what has to be done. What have we done? We hid half the facts unless you sit and read these 100 pages, because this isn't all-inclusive of what the entire inch-thick packet is. I think we open a door there by saying we need to include this 100 pages as the reference point. So one of the things I say is that, when we talked about that this would just be the beginning and you go back to the whole document, is that we shouldn't factor in this big document. If it's not included in these 10 pages or an exact reference point, it shouldn't be there, because we've opened ourselves to so many different options that's included in this 100-page packet that I don't care who's on this board, we've all read it a bunch of times. There's still things that I've forgotten that I oh man, we need to talk about this. And I think we're putting ourselves in a risky situation by saying this thing that these people wrote is now what we're putting in the town 5-year plan. And once again, when we talk about the growth plan, and Ron, wasn't, he has issues with and everything, but the lawyer comes in and goes, well, it's part of your 5-year growth plan. I don't know why you wouldn't want to develop it. Once again, we're going to invite lawyers coming in who say, this resiliency element is part of your 5-year plan. And we're going to have lawyers in front of here who are, just amazing talkers, swaying us because we agreed to have this whole 100 pages included.
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion that we refuse to adopt this document into the comprehensive plan.
You talking about the little or the big document?
Both.
Oh, neither one of them.
Because essentially it's unnecessary.
That's correct.
Would anybody like to second that motion? Or would you like to discuss this some more?
I'd like to discuss it more with other people about things to talk about. That's a big thing.
That's fine.
Right.
That's fine.
Yeah, I don't think you need to axe it tonight, so.
I know where you're at.
I can make a motion. Nobody has to second. Nobody has to vote.
Well, somebody needs to convince me because I'm too ignorant to know it, or I don't know who the reference was to, but I've been looking at this thing for 6 months. I agree with everything Newt's saying. I just couldn't articulate it as well.
I don't
I
disagree.
just don't, it's just so far reaching, It's like talking about increase the urban tree canopy. I look at California, it's on fire because of their increased urban tree canopy. And they're bringing that crap here.
No, they're,
Everybody's flooding out of California because they turned into a shithole.
I've never seen so many New York tanks in Berlin this summer.
Yeah.
I mean, they're solid. We're being invaded down here. I can tell you that.
guys, don't badmouth the trees, okay?
I'm bad
trees.
about the New Yorkers.
California's problem is they won't clean up the dead trees under the canopy. That's their
Well, that's how you get the fruit. You plant the tree, then you can't clean up underneath it.
Let's stick with the top.
Right. Well, guys, look, I've been part of a resiliency committee before. And really, resiliency is about protecting what you have. Just looking forward and trying to, see what could possibly happen and then being ready for it. So like, I think the big packet is way too deep. The small packet is sort of getting to what we need, but it's like, small things, like, small areas where we see we can plant a little more. You plant a little more. You try to save your environment. You can see areas where we making, I always wonder how come the town of Berlin don't allow golf carts. For, you can parking, a mom and dad shop, other communities it works. So like small things that you try to see where your community could work, maybe save the environment a little and protect yourselves from those big storms or like when the park got flooded. You know, it's small things, but that packet is way too deep. But we really need to look into this packet and just see just tiny things that would protect us from the larger things that we see could happen. That's the resiliency committee that I was on. This, you know, making mandates. You know, you don't have to really make mandates. You just make suggestions to save yourself. Because we know the world is changing. And just small things to kind of look out for yourself. That's the resiliency that I see, not doing a whole bunch of crazy stuff.
And I agree with that, because as we sit here as a committee, we meet once a month or when needed, that we tackle these kinds of problems, as does the council. We don't need a multi-page document or people across the bridge telling us how to run our deal here. We do a pretty good job, I think, and we don't need all this to tell us, or for people to point to and say, you adopted it, you should do it. I think that we tackle these problems as they come upon us, and we can plan for them. I mean, we know where flooding spots are. We're dealing with that. We know where, you know, it's not rocket science to figure out what problems are around here. So, and the mayor council, it's their job to take care of it. And you know, so we don't need a multi-page document. And these two documents are, as far as I know, are tied together. One goes with the other. Is that right?
Yeah, to understand it, this is just referencing this thing, so this is.
It's a summary.
Yes.
Summary, so this is really.
They're tied together.
Is this still a draft,
How do you draft?
right?
They're both correct.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly, so this is just a draft.
Yeah.
So this could become,
But it's referencing the whole package right here.
okay.
They're tied together.
This
You
could-
wanna know
this
if we
could-
can get rid of the draft and
This
just have
could
it.
only be in a file somewhere, if somebody wanted to reference it, which anything that we do is. And this could be not law, just something we agreed on. To think about things in a little different way, because maybe it's a good idea, maybe it's a good idea to plan.
A comprehensive plan is something that's designed to make us think about the future. That's what
This
inclines.
codifies nothing.
Right, it's not, there's no mandate in there. And the comprehensive plan, in some respects, can be a mandate when you're hearing something and you
Well,
look.
there's not really any mandates in the comprehensive plan.
I don't understand the fear, dude. I just
But
don't-
but constantly, if you put it in a comprehensive plan, it means you agreed to it, and it means that.
Then you can change it too.
That you think, I agree with that. But also means that you should follow it. So people coming before this board, including much of these lawyers for developers, they point to this and they say, listen, Joe Moore was just in it, doing here that.
Totally different.
Just wait a minute, I'm speaking. Can I speak?
Go right ahead.
So, you know, this is a growth area, you pointed out, so this project should be able to go here because it's a growth area. And of course, we can deny it, I agree with that, but, it still gives something for people to point at and accuse you of accepting and adopting, and I don't think we need it, because we can do it on our own. We can use common sense up here about planning for, you know, what we need to plan for. We don't need a document that demands more codes and more regulation.
It demands more thought. It doesn't demand more code or
Well, it
regulation.
says it in there, it says codes should be, more codes should be
Then
added.
take anything to reference a code out of it.
No, I don't think we need it. You heard me on
I
that.
get you. I'm just trying to
I-
get this thing moving.
I think it should be scrapped.
That's what you think. I think differently.
Well, I'm one who really doesn't like the state of the law today because we have too much law. I mean, our comprehensive plan, it's a pretty boring, tedious read.
Really.
And it's pretty daggone long for us. A comprehensive plan doesn't have to be an inch thick. It's supposed to be a nice pointed direction of the major areas we should be looking at. And I guess, with that thought in mind, yeah, we don't need this, this thing because it's like you said, it is common sense. I mean, anything that comes up, we're gonna take all these issues that are in here into consideration as a matter of common sense. I can agree with that.
20 grand down the tubes. Wasted money. But that's what government does best.
And I agree that government wants to self-perpetuate itself, and the University of Maryland needs grant funds so they can pay the tuition, pay the professors. I mean, this is the kind of stuff they generate. You spend hours making this stuff, and I don't know whether, I guess it's federal and state grants. Well, that's our tax money for a piece of garbage. Common sense. Red is red, blue is blue. We don't need to be told that in a document. So, Nudie, you turned me on. I'm happy to see a movement.
Maybe these communities across the bridge need guidance like this, but we certainly can think on our own and take care of problems on our own as they come up without having a document from Eastern Shore of Maryland, across the bridge to how to solve problems and promote more regulation, more tax dollars to support those regulations, and more tax dollars to hire more people to enforce those regulations. It's a never-ending story. I mean, it goes on and on. And that's what this document's all about, in my opinion.
So Jeff, if the planning commission says, I forget that thing, what happens next?
I don't know.
So it goes to the mayor and council,
It will.
and we're only an advisory body.
That is correct.
So they're gonna do what they wanna do, no matter what we say. Right, that's where we are.
Well,
The
I
mayor
hear-
and council have sent this to us to ask to get our comments.
Well, I hear some very interesting dialogue going in here tonight on both sides of the room and here in the middle. So I think you've got some good points, and I think we need to regroup and think this through again.
Well, I suspect at the mayor and council level, this will very well go the same way the fire sprinkler regulation went. Everybody else is doing it, so we'll do it. I mean, keep up with the Joneses or something.
So I need to amend my motion that we do not, so this is not a motion to not recommend this to the mayor and council.
Well-
To adopt this.
We still have time.
Well, if this is a amendment to the comp plan, we need to advertise a public hearing of your body, and then you would make the motion to not recommend this, if that's your preference, to the mayor and council. Then after that, I have to advertise a public hearing of the mayor and council to amend the comprehensive plan. It's another 2 weeks.
So we have to have a public hearing, is what you're saying, on this.
Yes.
If we're not,
To make a-
If we're not gonna
if
do
we're
it,
not recommending it, we have to have a hearing?
Yes, sir. I mean, it's a public hearing to consider the amendment to the comp plan by the addition of this.
We're not, but hopefully we're not going to.
Your recommendation,
what would that be?
for or against, it's got to be the subject of a public hearing.
Good.
It doesn't matter. The one for the fire sprinklers was a public hearing. And that, in my time here, that's the only one the mayor and council has not agreed with your motion on, your recommendation.
That's not true.
It's the only one.
Is this available for the public, like the condensed
Been
version?
available for the public.
The
Been
condensed version?
online for a year, right?
No, I mean the condensed version,
I don't
9
know,
page.
did Mary post the condensed version? Yes,
Okay.
okay.
So I think it's really important that they take a look at it, as we're all here sitting yelling at everything. And the 9-page one's a lot easier to digest. But the people should also then look back, and I don't know if there's a way to explain this to everybody, that they need to understand if they're getting this, they're getting this.
That's correct, that's right.
And that is, to me, the scary part of this whole process.
I don't understand, I don't understand it that way.
Just wait, just wait.
You just said that. Dave said
That was the way we thought it would be. It doesn't have to be.
Exactly.
Okay.
If you don't want the 60-page document,
Yeah, it goes in the trash can.
well, but it could be referenced,
It's a file somewhere, but
and it's available,
Exactly.
for viewing. But the amendment to the comprehensive plan could be just that shorter version.
Or shorter.
Quick question though, so if it's referenced though, and I'm gonna stick with E3 just because it's right in front of me, it's easy. Host a residential electric vehicle workshop to promote the environmental benefits and long-term cost savings of electric vehicles. If this is referenced, and I don't know, someone wants to host this, and they go, it's in your plan. Why aren't you doing this?
Well, first off, a comprehensive plan, as Pete was alluding to before, is a document that's supposed to be a guidance
A guide,
document.
a
It is
guide.
not code.
Exactly.
Okay.
It is not shalls and
Exactly.
it is may, or it's like this says consider a lot in it, this document. We should consider. And I agree with what's been said. Most of the time, you guys do consider all those items. You know, you're worried about stormwater, you're worried about pervious pavement versus impervious surfaces, you're worried about density, you're worried about lights. Yeah, you're worried about tree canopy. It mentions that we should increase it.
But
So-
all these things are already addressed. And
They're addressed by you. but they're not
addressed by,
necessarily-
like the flood, you know, I'm not an expert in flood, whatever, but
Yeah.
I'm assuming that the federal government's taking care of that, or, you know, along the lines, and they say we need to look
Yeah.
at it ourselves.
The towns take care of it.
Between the
I'm just saying, it's like, it's already been addressed, and we're supposed
Our
to
own
go
storm.
10% more. you know,
We
like-
have stormwater right now.
We do. We have a
Why
stormwater
do
chapter.
we need people to tell us
Really,
that we need to think about more stormwater regs or more, I mean, we take care of that. You know,
It's-
there's-
and
this is trying to make a problem where there's no problem.
well,
This is a solution in search of a problem.
Right.
I think you have to, I look at it, and I don't say you have to look at it any one way, but I look at this as a guidance document. It's aspirational. If we had a perfect world, if we could enforce everything we wanted, if we had every dime we needed, you know, we'd be like, yeah, everybody in town, we're gonna buy them an electric vehicle and have the charging station for it. Everybody's gonna have solar panels that power all their needs on their roof.
Guess what? If you give a government official a document that says you should be spending money on this, guess what? They're gonna spend money on it.
But
That's just their nature, and that, there's a lot of, you know, we don't need any more regulation, and, you know, we don't need any more taxes, encumbered by things we shouldn't have bought to start with. We're out of money now, and we don't need people across the bridge telling us what we have to do, what we shouldn't do. But, you know, it's not even from the Department of Planning, right? It's from some liberal environmental entity, from where?
University of Maryland
Yeah,
Environmental
yeah.
Finance Center.
Yes.
Okay, and that was a grant that was.
They've already wasted 20 grand
Came
on
from the
us.
Department of Housing and Community Development.
Right.
Okay.
Spend the money, get the grant. give it
And I
away.
will say this, the cover letter from the Maryland Department of Planning from Charles W. Boyd. He's the Director of Planning Coordination over there in Baltimore, for the state, okay?
Very important gentleman, I'm sure.
He addressed this to Mary Baldwin, who had sent it along, you know, on our behalf, Deputy Town Administrator. Dear Ms. Baldwin, thank you for the opportunity to comment on the draft amendment to the Town of Berlin's 2010 Comprehensive Plan. The Maryland Department of Planning would like to commend the town on the development of its resilience element, which is the subject of said amendment. Planning is impressed with the town's progressive planning efforts with respect to climate change and the element's focus on strategies and actions to strengthen the community's long-term resilience. That's just the start of the letter, and then he talks about where it went, and there's comments from everybody here throughout the state. So, and they are looking at other changes too to it that they would recommend. So, and that's another document that those recommended changes. So
So they're recommending already, we haven't even looked at, I mean, we're just dealing with it, they're recommending changes to this already.
correct. So, I mean, to me, we could work on this a long time, but if you don't
Why don't
have
you
it.
tell them to get in touch with us when they're all done, and then we'll look at it.
Well, I would rather that.
They are all done. Their review was of that draft
We're being-
You're
document.
saying now they're changing up again, right?
They make recommendations for changes, yes. Most of them are technical, so it's just oversight stuff.
So we need tonight to either make a recommendation or no recommendation, and or whatever we do tonight, vote on, we'll have a public hearing.
There's no action required tonight. There's no action required. I need to have, your action would have to be at a public hearing. You're gonna recommend this or not to the mayor and council? But it has to be a public hearing.
I think we go ahead with a public hearing, and then we make our thoughts, or vote, we can vote then whether to recommend or not recommend.
Can we combine that with a hearing on our review of the comprehensive plan if we're gonna change anything after we review it?
Yes, because they're both amendments for the comprehensive plan.
Right.
So that would be, if we could do it at the same time, it could be more than one amendment to the comprehensive
Right.
plan. All we're required to do, I'll say it for the 100th time, is review our comprehensive plan this year. And by talking about this, that constitutes a review. I will say that, you know. I'm not looking to go the easy way out here, but that would, or adding this, or adding the summary would constitute, we made an amendment, we reviewed the comprehensive plan. I'm looking to actually move on at, you know, if it's the next meeting or whatever, and look at the comprehensive plan. Because we've talked about growth areas quite a bit. We've talked about highway corridors quite a bit. I'm still hoping to have State Highway join us next month. We can talk about highway corridors in the comp plan with them. You know, future plan, future budget, future, you know, I don't know, expansion of the roadways or adding sidewalks or
Well, perhaps,
what can they do for us is what I'm looking for.
perhaps a useful thing to do tonight would be then, because we're also on the agenda to discuss the comprehensive plan tonight.
Yep.
So we've discussed this element, and we've all heard everybody, and so I guess we'll have a public hearing and do a motion on this.
Were those the only changes you had on the first page, or was
I only had one other change and one other page, but I don't need to go there given the discussion tonight. That was I only have one other little change, if you want to hear it. I mean, that was, page 5 at the bottom, CR3. Enhanced community connectivity. The second sentence of that paragraph, the highway which acts as the highway being 113. The highway which acts as a physical barrier poses serious safety risks to economically disadvantaged residents. Well, I would take out economically disadvantaged. It promotes safety risks to every resident, not just economically disadvantaged residents. So I don't know where that came from. And then in the community, then it says, but also, I would strike the words, but also. And then just say, creates a social barrier because it can deter residents from participating in community events. And I would add the words after events on either side of the highway, resulting in a stratified community. So I agree with the general thought. When I struck the words but also, I would put in the word and, by the way. So that second sentence would read like this. The highway, which acts as a physical barrier, poses serious safety risks to residents in the community and creates a social barrier because it can deter residents from participating in community events on either side of the highway, resulting in a stratified community. And that's the only comments I had on this condensed version of the resiliency element. They're all my thoughts.
You have any on the bottom of page 6? There's also concern that Berlin may be expected to absorb a growing population, just on the top of page 7. For Maryland shore communities migrating inland as they seek refuge from the increased flooding due to sea level rise.
Yeah, I would probably strike that as being silly.
Yeah, I mean,
I'd like to go through this again and do some more striking, but
Yeah.
I don't know if we need to do it tonight.
I mean, I was gonna, I got a quote from,
Is that good, Dave? Yeah.
fine with that.
If you take that with the, where's the debt?
So I'll quote Hank Johnson, a congressman from Georgia, who was worried about Guam flipping over too many people on the island. So if they all came here, I'm worried about Berlin and Seaman. I just want to put that out there.
Are we finished with the resiliency element for tonight?
I just have one more comment. I'm just kind of baffled at what appears to be the fear of talking about something.
Well, this is my fear right here, is that this is referencing this.
We're not saying we're gonna do that. I'm just saying,
It doesn't
the fear
have
of talking
It
about
doesn't have to.
doing this, I don't understand the rationality behind
I
it.
just think we call FEMA, we have a hurricane, you call FEMA. You have
It's not necessary, in my opinion.
That's what we're.
I get that. I just don't, I see fear and I don't know that that's kind of what.
Where do you see fear? I don't
It's
get it.
just, people are worried about all this and that.
I fear too much law, just like you
Yeah,
do. That's what I fear.
me too. This is not law, and we haven't adopted
I
anything.
fear unnecessary law, more words for people to have to try to read and digest, to get to a very simple point.
Okay.
But it's already said.
Yeah.
It's heaping garbage on top of something we don't need to have, that we don't need to address it. We address it already now. It's totally unnecessary.
Our code covers all this. We look at every aspect of this when we look at
The
every
code cover
project.
tree canopy?
We could talk about trees
Does
in about
the
everything
code,
we
you
have.
just made a statement, does the code cover tree canopy?
It requires us to look at landscaping.
Does it cover tree canopy? Like it doesn't here? No,
We
it
don't
doesn't.
need that because
We
it tells
don't,
us,
and you see big trees coming down all the time.
it tells us to look at landscaping and require it. That's what we do.
You guys are mandating big trees all the time on projects. I mean, I see that all the time.
Every project we do here, I'm asking for
If
trees.
they could only grow as fast as they go down, we'd be in good shape.
Well, then make a law for them not to go down, have a special tree.
We got it in the code, it doesn't do a damn bit of good.
It's in the code already then. But why do we need it in the code again then?
My point about fear.
Well, if we're not getting
It's not
the
fair,
trees
it's
that
not
we're
fair.
supposed to get, that's our
It's even
fault.
more regulation, it's gonna cost more money.
If we're not getting the trees we want, that's our fault. We're not
We'll
mandating.
see a regulation, I'm only trying to say, what you're talking about regulation, it's not here. It's not here.
It's suggested.
But it's not regulation, okay?
Well,
It's
it-
suggesting,
Yeah, well,
thinking about a way to do
that's,
things.
you know, the first thing, put your foot in the door, then you kick it down, and that's what's happening.
It's like being a little bit pregnant, you're just gonna be,
Right.
Ron, do you think the tax code could be reduced to 10 pages? If we
One,
tried
in
to?
certain places, yeah.
I mean, the tax code is 2 volumes this thick in fine print, and nobody can understand it. Don't we want to aspire to get rid of all this unnecessary crap and get down to the essence and get it down to 10 pages? I mean, this generation, we have to set a new precedent. We don't need more law. We need more precise law, stated more concisely, with less crap to deal with. We don't have to have all this complicated law. It can be simple, it can be understandable.
Where's the law, Pete? Where's the law?
Come to my office, I'll show you the law.
This is not a law, okay?
I know it's
Just
not.
Trying
But
Right,
it's
you
a
guys-
document we
to
have
talk
to
about
use.
this, you know,
Yes,
that's
sir.
clear about what we're talking about.
And it is in a way the law, Ron,
Let's be
because
clear.
every time I go to get something approved in a planning commission, when I'm representing somebody, I refer to the comprehensive plan all the time in Ocean City, and it's persuasive. The comprehensive plan says, you gotta do this. And
Got to, there's shalls and mays, and they're in the right place.
And it's not law, but it is a directive. It's an idea that you can use and hang your hat on for what you want to accomplish. And it's very useful. And I do it all the time. So,
It's useful on the other side, too.
All right, where are we
all
going
right,
now?
let's work on the, let's go down Dave's little list here for the comprehensive plan. Is that good with everybody? Get off this for a minute. The sheet he gave out, starting with the current designated growth areas, future growth areas, that page.
And if you look in the comp plan copies I gave you, that's map 5, our growth areas. If you want to take a look at that and refamiliarize yourself with what the current comprehensive plan says.
what are we looking at?
You say not 5, Dave?
Map 5, yeah.
Map 5 in the back of that,
It's in the very back, I'm sorry, the maps are in the back.
in the back of your comp plan.
Comp plan. The one that says growth and urban growth boundary areas. because that shows the growth areas best, you know, the way they're designated shows it best. And then when you look at that map, you see everything that's in gray, and some of it has the color overlaid on it for those growth areas. But most of the town is, for the most part, it's very similar to what's there from 2010 in the gray area, that's town boundary. The only one I noticed is out to the northeast, the Arby's and the Royal Farms across from the high school. That is now in growth area 1. We did that as a public hearing before the annexation. And you see a lot of the white area around that, of course, that's mostly county territory, or it is county territory, but that's future land use. That's something to be determined if you want to add any of the white areas, if you thought that they should be added to a growth area, which gives them the potential to be annexed or for commercial growth or residential growth. That's what we should be looking at. Or changing any of the growth areas you see here. I see the one out to the west of town, out Broad Street, in the gray and white striped area. That's like the Bay Club out there, that area. I don't anticipate anything happening there anytime soon. The other potential development area is the one that we looked at for Mr. Girardi up on Route 50 there, another green and white striped area. Well, we did add that to the growth area. So that should be in orange today if this map was accurate. That triangle along 50 and 346. Other than that, most of these growth areas, the maroon color up to the northeast, that's some of the, well, 2 of those parcels now, that's what Oceans East sits on. It's in town. So it was put in a growth area. And it's now in town. So basically that should be gray with the red overlay on it, but it's in town now. In this map it was not. It was annexed since that. So was the Arby's and Royal Farms across Route 50. All this other area, like the growth area 4 to the south of town, like along the ball field area and all, was, you know, anticipated to be residential possibly. But nothing's materialized there in, well, more than 10 years. And out the orange area out to the west of town was also, if you look at the comprehensive plan itself, like it'll tell you what those land uses were anticipated for each growth area. Like I think it's page 39 of the growth area talks about a summary. I took some notes on that of what they were put there for. So, you know, you have to look at back and forth between the map and where you think what will, as far as land use and future use, what will go best. The whole plan, the comprehensive plan, also mentions a lot of workforce housing in many spots. We just had a discussion about, was there need for more apartments in town? Something like I recall Mr. Starr mentioning, he thinks so. You know, he thinks that we need some affordable apartments. They don't all have to be defined as workforce housing like the federal government does. They can be market priced housing, much like Oceans East was. And then the Cannery Village project was workforce housing. That was based on 60% of the mean Worcester County income for eligibility. I don't know what, if you guys have reviewed this, what your thoughts are, about what direction you want to head in first. I'm just trying to give you, in my email and then put in your packets that going down that list. If you want to stay with the growth areas you have, or expand them, or shrink them. We've talked in many meetings about the highway and transportation corridors. There's an element in here for that. I know one of the ones Mr. Cosby has mentioned in the past was we need to talk about the parking around downtown. And of course, you always do talk about pedestrian and bicycle accessibility. Every project, anything that's attached to any kind of growth or development, we always have that discussion. The green belt surrounding the community, that's going to, as this map 5 shows, that takes a lot of coordination with the county and with the landowners. If we can actually limit any growth in those areas, that's kind of like a taking of, the property owner's rights. If you say, no, you can't, if you're in the town of Berlin in that area, you can't build anything there because we said so. So that's a more of a difficult thing. That usually requires some kind of easement or agreement with the property owners.
Well, most of that green is zoned agriculture now, am I correct?
Yes, right. And it's in the county, so we wouldn't have
We
authority.
don't have anything to say about it.
Right, so the county.
But we could put it in, we could have the county, which didn't happen with this 2010 comprehensive
Well,
plan.
but to your point of,
We could have the county help us.
the county stated they don't want to rezone any more agriculture anyway, so I think they would be on board if we come in there with either a low-key growth, or not a high-density growth, but low-key growth, and take each one case by case, and certainly, if you don't change the zoning, or annex it in to change the zoning, then you're not going to have, and run the sewer pipe, then you're not going to have the problem. But the minute you start annexing it in, we need to pick and choose, be careful about what projects we let into that growth area, or if we annex a piece of property.
Well, see, what you're, like if you're looking at the map, okay, say south of town, okay? We have a growth area just in the yellow, okay? So in those areas, they could move to annexation by their request. Now, if you wanted to designate more growth area around town to accomplish this, if they wanted to be hooked up to town services, they would have to be in that growth area before they could get annexation.
Well,
So that's your control.
The yellow area, is that some of those county ball fields?
It's
Yeah.
adjoining it,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's all county.
It's adjoining it, but it's in the county.
Right.
The gray area is the part that's in town, between the two yellows.
That's in town right there?
Yeah, some of it is, yes.
Well, that's the pine, basically 2 residences and a bunch of pine trees.
No, they're out in the county, those 2 residents. They're not in town. So, you follow me, dude? Like,
Oh, yeah.
you can put the growth area all the way around us.
Yeah.
We can make this has growth area 4 as the latest one. We could make a growth area 5. And what that does is, if a property owner wants to come into town, be annexed, he's got to be in that growth area.
Oh, I understand.
So that gives you some control on it. You have to go through the annexation process, and whatever the development is gonna be, you have to approve it. Right now, this green area that we call an urban growth was a nice idea, but this farmland to the left of the yellow area, if the farmer wanted to build 200 homes there, and he could do his own well and septic, I'm just saying, I don't know if he'd be able
Not
to.
gonna happen.
But we would have no control.
Well, I know, but the county.
And it would not be in part of town.
The county, I mean, I have a little faith in the county.
Me too.
Not changing that zoning to that intense development if Berlin didn't want it. So, I mean, I'm not saying they couldn't do it, but if we annex that piece, they're gonna come in here with a request for high density, and they want the sewer pipe. So that, so we have to rely on the counties, some to control our perimeter, or at least we plead our case to them, but certainly if we annex it, then they have a right to the sewer pipe and that opens the door. Because
Agreed.
because certainly this planning commission, I mean, I couldn't get the mayor to throw me off yet, but it's gonna change and we're not gonna be the people sitting up there through the whole thing, you know.
The Americans throw you off?
I said, yeah, mayor.
They can do that, really?
Yeah.
Damn.
Just,
Are you typing new man?
I don't know. I'll find out soon. Can we talk process just for a second? I think we shouldn't rely on the good faith of the county. We've been doing that for a long time. I think we should talk to the county at some point.
And I agree with
But I
that.
think at first we should talk, like the last meeting we had. We're here to represent, not us, but the people of Berlin. So I think before we go too far in discussing this, we talked before about hearing what the people of Berlin had to say. And I think that since we represent those people, we should hear from them. Now, that's difficult in today's pandemic situation, but
Dave, was tonight's meeting open? Could we have had the public in here?
Yes.
yeah, come in.
It was a regular meeting.
I mean, you could have had,
We could have had up to 16 people in the room.
16 people, and you posted this online by at least last Friday.
Yeah.
And then our agenda this evening was to sit here and talk about this stuff.
Yep.
You see the participation
That
we
was
had out
posted,
there.
it was posted on the kiosks, and it posted on the
Yeah,
town
I'm not,
website.
you know, I'm just,
Well, to Ron's
just
point,
reality is that the people, not that they don't care, but, you know, I don't want to hear how they don't have access to the information. It's right there. You had plenty of information about Mr. Purnell down here.
So are you saying you don't want to hear from the public?
No, I want to hear from the public.
Okay,
I'm just
okay,
saying they don't
okay.
really seem to be too
I
concerned.
don't think that they know it's time to come in here and.
Yeah, they do. They can come in here and talk about it anytime. They can sit there and fire off
Okay.
snotty little things
Okay.
about him online all the time. They can't bring their ass into here, you know. I've been here for 20 years, not as long as Newton.
well, I mean,
Or Pete, but the participation level out here is pretty much nil.
Okay, okay.
Okay, I mean,
All right.
just,
So
you
we
know,
should-
you can drum up a bunch of support, come in
Ron, I
and
mean,
do
Ron,
something, whatever,
to
but.
your point about the people, certainly, I mean, these meetings and our intentions and what's before us comes, and I see it in the paper, both papers, Ocean City Dispatch, and when there's a big issue, they participate, and they voice, and certainly when you walk around town, people know you're on the planning commission, they certainly voice their opinion, and I'm hearing a lot of people don't want any more residential annexation, especially these high-density projects with rental units and that sort of thing. So, you know, they're aware. A lot of them are more aware than you think they are.
No, I do, I know they're aware, I would
I know they're
like to
aware,
give
but
them-
they're just not showing up here to.
I would like to
state
give
it.
them the opportunity to
Okay,
show up here. If we're gonna make changes to the comprehensive plan, I think, rather than wait until the hearing, the night of the hearing, when it screws everything up, when they start screaming and yelling, they don't like what we're doing, that we deal with the people before we come up with a draft.
okay, I'm just saying they're a lot more informed now.
So you
than
want a
they were
public
20
hearing
years
before the
ago.
public hearing?
No, I'm talking about public
They
hearing.
think they are.
Talking about a meeting like this, where people we acknowledge, I didn't know what the deal was with people coming in here, I myself don't know. I don't know how many people do that.
Well, that's what a public hearing is for, them to voice their opinion.
Exactly,
I'm
exactly.
sure everybody looked at the mayoral thing last night, and they see how many people were allowed to be in here, because there was obviously a lot of interest in the election, and they were gonna see how they were gonna swear in the new mayor yesterday, and as well as the three new council people. I'm just saying that they're well aware.
Okay, so what you're saying is we should just go on with that?
No, I'm not saying that, I'm just
Okay.
saying, it's the opportunity's there, it makes it sound like we're not giving them the
I'm not
opportunity.
saying that. I
It's
just
all-
think
It's all
people-
laid out there for them, they wanna.
We're here tonight to discuss the comprehensive plan and what we think about what we got. So I'm just going to briefly say, I read it again this week for this meeting. I think we've covered the bases in our current comprehensive plan. We had a lot of public.
Thank you, Pete. I was fully involved in that in 2009.
I know you were.
Thank you.
We both were. And all these issues were written into this plan and expressed with the urban growth boundary and the buffers we want. And the people came to a lot of public hearings and expressed the thought, and I hear it today and I heard it then. We want Berlin to stay as much as we can like it is with reasonable growth, but we don't want to lose the identity of the town. That means geographical identity and character identity. So the people of this town, what I hear and see in our comprehensive plan, written to try to protect it, is to say, look, let's hold on to what we got.
Well,
And let's watch our growth areas, and I think the discussion about getting with the county on limiting those growth areas is very critical. I think that's the most important thing.
But
We
the
have to
people
deal with.
first, I think the people first.
I'm not
and then
saying
we'll-
don't hear the people, I'm just
Okay,
doing
okay.
tonight's job.
Yeah.
Tonight's job is, do we want to change anything in this plan? I read it, I think it's pretty daggone good. And I don't see anything that's biting me in the butt to say we need to say anything else than what we've
well,
already said.
the one thing you see down here now with what's going on in this world is license plates from all over the country coming to places like this because they're trying to escape what the hellhole that they've have to live in and what's going on now in this country. And they come down here, so the big issue to me, and it goes hand in hand with growth areas and maintaining the town, is the quality of life. They're coming down here for a different quality of life. And I tell people when they come down here, from New York, I saw some in the Donway Park, and I said, what are y'all doing down here? Oh God, we had to get out of New York, man, that's the place, we gotta get out of there. I said, well, I'll tell you what, don't come down here and try to change things, because you're gonna end up with the same thing you try to get away from if you do. It's a different, we got quality of life down here, and that's what we need to try to preserve.
And if all these growth areas we have here go up, what you're talking about is gone,
That's right,
gone.
that's right.
So my point is that I think we need to talk to the county and the people about the growth areas we got all around us.
And I think we
We
need to
have no
start,
control over.
we need to, maybe we can say in the comprehensive plan that we need to start an initiative to look at each parcel of ground separately and address them with the county.
First, I think, like we didn't do a good job in the comprehensive plan that exists. Before we go looking at growth areas out here, we need to look at growth areas in here.
Oh, yeah.
We need to identify, we need to look at underdeveloped properties in town. If we're gonna grow, let's think about how we're gonna grow. Let's just not the easy way. Oh, we'll just throw them out there.
But do you know our plan says that?
But we don't do it.
I know, but look, our job tonight is to look at our, is this
No,
adequate?
right.
And I am saying, this document's covering all the bases. It's talking about infill development.
It does.
Yeah, we addressed it all.
It does, but
It's all
what
here.
Newt just said about quality of life, which is, I think, one of the things we're here to look after, is this filled up, boy, is that whole deal.
Well, yeah, I don't believe in sprawl, but I don't know. I think you and I have a different opinion of infill. I mean, I certainly undeveloped properties in town can be developed, but I'm not looking for that mother-in-law apartment over top of everybody's garage,
Right, well, there's a lot to discuss,
Yeah,
but,
right.
but I think you and I are on this. The county's invited too many people to our party.
Well, I agree with you. This town should be talking to the county about the surrounding, but it's what I've heard is the county it doesn't want to rezone any more agriculture in Worcester County. Any major
It
development.
depends on who comes to them.
Well, I understand that things change, but.
Yeah, but they do want development to go into existing concentration centers. And we're an existing center, and we don't want
We
that.
get that, we get what they're trying to do, it's just that it's our party, not theirs. It's our home, not theirs.
But we
They're
got the
throwing people
But
on
the
us.
problem is, if we don't take them in and allow development that the county wants to develop, the county will develop it around us and we lose our green belt.
That's why we have to talk to them.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
The point is this, we gotta make a partnership with the county and express that goal. That we need to really talk this over, and talk about what the county wants to see and what we want to see.
Because everybody here agrees that we're here because of the quality of life. No one, I don't think, is going to disagree with that. So we got to figure out what is that, what determines that quality of life, and how do we protect it for ourselves and our children, not for the people who want to come here.
But to be specific, we all know what people want in this town to maintain their quality of life. They want an identified town. We don't want to be like all the towns that used to exist around Baltimore in the Beltway. They're now joined together and there's no town.
Who didn't plan
We
it
want this town to come out of a cornfield and appear like it does.
slowly.
And that's important
Yep,
to the identity of this town.
yes, it is.
And that requires these periphery lands to be carefully developed in conjunction with the county.
Or protected.
And that brings up the buying and development rights, which we addressed in
Or
our
agricultural
comprehensive plan.
preservation.
We really need to get serious about how we can fund buying development rights, so that we can buy these areas over
And
time.
that is an avenue, but of course, the problem with the greenbelt zone is just like these folks out here on the end of Evans Road, you know, you go down there a ways and they got a little sliver of land down there and they think it's worth $1 million or something because they see the houses next to them and they think everything's going to push their way, so those land values, you know, they think they're worth this or that, you know, so,
They got no pipe,
right? But,
they got the pipe.
yeah, I mean, that is an avenue is to buy, you know, so-called, like a conservation easement, but buy their development.
There are many vehicles to do what you're talking about.
Here's what I would say to add to the comprehensive plan.
We could have started out with 20 grand in the fund tonight if we hadn't wasted on the study for this.
I would say this, that we need to take the initiatives we've established in this, we need to add a statement that says, the time has come for the town to really start implementing a plan for how we're gonna protect the periphery.
To do the plan, to do what we
To
said
do
we're
what
gonna
we said we're
do.
gonna
To
do.
do what we said we're gonna do
We're
right
now in a
here.
critical phase where we need to implement these things.
It's critical, because
That
like
only-
you said, you see all kinds of license.
That only requires the addition of a sentence or a paragraph to the comprehensive plan. To say that it's time to get serious about what we're gonna look like in 50
The
years.
first way to get serious is go talk to the county, because they're in control of
I
it.
agree, that's part of the deal. Part of the deal.
And one of the council members now, our new council members, is the chairman of the Worcester County Planning Commission. So I got a feeling we're gonna get some cooperation.
Yeah.
Say that again?
One of the new council members is the chairman of the Worcester County Planning Commission. So I got a feeling we're gonna get some cooperation.
Who was that?
Jay Nerve,
Didn't know that.
yeah.
How's that not a conflict there?
How's it?
Oh, I like it.
How's it
I mean, I don't know.
I don't know.
It just kind of.
I don't know that he's gonna continue in
How's
that.
it-
Oh, okay.
But how's it conflict?
You know, I don't know. I mean, it's, you know, he's representing the county and and then the town as well, so.
I don't-
he can get
I'll say two words, Sandy Coyne.
Yeah.
Sandy Corman was
Whatever
a
you were
council
doing.
member?
And Jay Ner's a great guy. I mean,
He was on the
but
board in that.
I don't know if he should be serving on a county board as well as a town board at the same time.
I don't know that he's gonna continue on the county commission, I don't know. I don't think he can.
Is there a rule, really? I know, is there a rule about?
I don't know that if there is or there
You
isn't.
couldn't see a conflict arising there?
I could see it if it was a Berlin Planning Commission and a Berlin Council, but I don't see it in the county. I just don't.
Hmm.
I mean, if there was, then you just recuse yourself. I mean, that's, why are you trying to limit what people can do?
I'm not trying to limit anything that people can do, but I mean.
Not limiting anything.
It's just an observation. I mean, it's just an
I just don't
observation.
see
I
it.
just see where a conflict would arise. But,
Let's see it.
Well, I remember at one point, we had about $50,000 for our design standards and all that got just disappeared or something,
I
and
think it wasn't that much money, but, well, there was money
it was
there.
there somewhere.
The general fund is.
I mean, you know, we haven't gotten to the parking thing yet, but we spent a grant for $25,000, or whatever it was, and we're only in phase one. I mean, my God. Yeah,
Phase one of,
phase one of the parking study, because we
Okay.
ran out
I'm
of
sorry.
grant money
Yeah.
to tell us where to park. I mean, I don't have to, you know,
There's a solution looking for a problem.
yes.
but there is land available to make parking lots with the town.
There's also, you can walk a little bit.
Right.
That's what you do. You
Right, so-
park on the grass down by the firehouse.
The town-
Walk your ass up there to watch.
so you're kind of giving me a directive, which I thought we would be going down anyway, is to come back to you after some heavy communication with the county?
Well, let's just start
Is that the way
talking,
I'm taking that?
well, let's just start talking with Jay, I guess, and see where that goes.
I can do that. But I think this is gonna be more like the, development review and permitting that we're gonna have to go to. County, zoning administrator, Ed Tudor, Jennifer Keener now is the zoning administrator. Phyllis Wimbrough just retired, so those
She's
people
not,
I'll have to reach out to. Yeah,
When did she retire?
a couple weeks ago.
Oh, really?
Yep, and she'd been talking that way for a
Well,
while, but she finally did.
It's gonna be a long, drawn process. And
To-
It's to coordinate with the county and get a process going where we can put something together and go to the county and say, look, we've looked at every parcel of land around the town, here's what we want to see happen.
Right.
And then we have to bring that into the TDR, buying the development rights issue. It's a complicated situation.
Oh, it's not
gonna
easy.
require a lot of work. It's
Well,
not-
That's why we're here.
I like to bind the development rights. I mean, that way you don't infringe on somebody's property rights.
Well, you don't. I mean, they have a right. Every one of these green parcels, every parcel that's in that green place has at the most the right for 5 subdivisions. That's if environmental programs gives them a drain field.
Right.
A lot of times you don't get 5. I don't care how many 100 acres, because all the good land really is already gone, but it's marginal land now. So the value there, if it's zoned ag and you can't perk, what's the value? Farmland or tree, a lot of it's in trees because it won't even farm. So that, it's doable, it's doable.
I think
And
practical-
Berlin is just the kind of place these entities want to put their money.
I think the practical approach might be, one practical approach is, how can we fund a trust fund to buy these development rights and start doing it? In other words, apply to every grant that becomes available
Here's one way, Pete.
and find a way, and just start doing it.
Transfer development rights. Say somebody in town owns 5 acres and it has 1 right, okay? But he wants to put 10 on there. He can buy rights from other owners.
Yeah, I know how,
Trade.
no, you're not, you're missing, I know how it works. What I'm talking about is a practical way to get the initiative moving forward is to say, okay, let's take $1 out of every citizen's tax dollars for the year and put it into the development rights purchase fund.
I'm just saying that there's,
I'm saying, if you start a fund that is identified, then you get some momentum. So then once you get up to 100,000 in that fund, it's like, hey, we have $100,000, we can, but here's the property that needs protected, let's buy it. And buy off their development rights. And have people, the town administrator, looking for the grants from the feds and the state for purchasing, environmental rights.
if we want.
And get our fund going so we have an identity.
Well, let me,
That's
Pete,
great.
as a
That's great, but there's a whole ton of stuff out there already. I'm just saying that's great, but we don't need to do that. That was great if we do. There are entities, there are vehicles out there to do these things in many ways. We just need to get it going.
And that's all I'm saying.
Right, right.
Whatever's available, find the money and start gathering it and put it into a town account. And now we have a fund, and the public will look and say, wow, we've got a fund to buy these rights.
There
We're
are
doing
people
something.
in line to have their rights bought.
I know it's not hard to find buyers, sellers. It's hard to get the money to pay them. You gotta get the money first. They all will be happy to sell their rights, that's not a problem. I just think that's a way to practically get the initiative on the books and the public thinking about it.
Great.
So every time you look at the budget, wow, we're up to 200,000 in our development rights fund, great. Then we invest it and we accelerate it.
So that could be, so we could take some money from, impact fees and put it in there.
Whatever.
Right, as a.
A dollar here, a dollar
Right,
there.
right.
Then we can actually protect our town. No problem.
All right, so Dave, where are we at? You're gonna talk to the county or something, or what we're doing?
I would be doing that anyway, but it sounds like that's what your directive is also, so.
Let's move on, we don't need to spend a night here.
So we're gonna talk to the county about basically, in general, the interface between us. Like, here's how we, you guys are controlling this border of ours, and here's how we see it, how do you see it? We just need to have a meeting of the minds, at least to begin the process of, yeah, we should have been talking about this a long time ago, guys. Rather than you put this stuff on us and we don't say anything.
We have been talking about it, we just haven't been doing it.
Doing it.
Pete, as a lawyer, have you done anything in that arena of buying property rights? In other words, if somebody has 100 acres, just for the sake of conversation,
No, I've never been involved in a transaction buying,
what's the formula there?
well,
Newt, my wife does it for a living, if you want to talk.
Let's bring her in here.
You want to? Sure.
find out how this is done, because there might be somebody, like you say, Feldman, that might have settled property rates right now, out there where you wanna, where you wanna take control.
All you do is go sign a contract and do
Right.
a transfer.
It's illegal.
Just like a conservation.
It's like anything, where two people agree on for a price and they make an agreeable agreement and it's done.
Well, I know how it's done, but I'm saying, it's just, yeah, I know it's not hard, but, let's, find out how much somebody would take or what the formula is. And once we figure out the formula, then you know how much money you need and try to raise some money. Maybe the citizens wanna
The
voluntarily put into a fund for a quality of life fund, so we're stopping the annex.
The formula is the value of the property.
Right.
That's the formula.
And even some of these people who have these rights might be willing to donate them at discounted prices and take some tax benefit or something.
They do all the time.
Yeah, right.
They do all the time.
There's all kinds of avenues.
Yeah, yeah.
We just have to start the dialogue.
Thank you.
What's the drop dead date for to finish the comprehensive plan?
What do we need to finish? Does anybody have?
You know,
I'm just saying to say that we're,
All you need
Yeah.
to
to,
say that we're finished, and then we'll do our public.
We're just
all
gonna-
we're required to do is review it.
Yeah.
You've just reviewed it.
Well, the resilience.
I'm not
thing-
saying it's that simple, I don't mean it, and I don't mean that to be smart.
But the resilience thing needs to be added, or we can add it 6 months from now, or we can never add it.
That's up to the mayor and council.
Well, I know, okay, I get
We're gonna have a
that.
hearing.
It's not part of this process, or it coincides right now.
We're gonna have a hearing on resilience.
To us, when we took the grant, it was the easiest way of accomplishing a review and edit of the comprehensive plan. So
Okay.
There you
it's
go.
not required
See?
either way.
So the only way you got that 20 grand was to promise to do a resilience plan, or adopt a resilience plan, is that what you're saying?
No, it didn't, it was not, they came to us after we got the grant, and we said, this might be a way we could include it in our
Who
comprehensive
applied
plan.
for the grant? Laura
Yeah,
Allen?
the town did, yeah, the town did. So it wasn't contingent at all on the comprehensive plan.
Did the mayor?
That was our
Did the
idea.
mayor council vote on that, on or applying for that grant?
They did. They have to approve applying for any grant, whether there's town money involved or not. In this case, there was not. There was no in-kind, there was no cash, or, sometimes they're 80%, town pays 20%, there was none of that. So, the only
If we
thing
don't put it in the plan, do we have to give the money back, or is that how?
Can we get a refund?
I doubt it.
That might-
A lot of work went into that. Actually, there was actually, we had
In the sidewalk.
We had 3 community meetings, and they were like on Saturdays or in the evening.
Did anybody get overtime for that?
I don't get paid overtime,
No,
I get
you
paid
know, I said,
overtime for
What
this.
about all these state employees, they get overtime to hash all that over and come here and,
I have no idea. I didn't never ask her how she got paid. But they facilitated the meetings, we had good attendance, and we had public input. So, and I thought they were well attended, especially the one at the library.
Yeah.
We had, I don't know, were you there at that one?
No, that was a good thing.
Yeah.
We got the
and
same feedback.
We must have had, I don't know, that one, we might have had 24, 25 people. The one at the elementary school, we probably had 15, and that was on a weeknight. And we got the third one. Where?
On purpose.
Yeah, I think we did one at the multi-purpose building also, yeah. And that one had, again, probably 20 people at it. So we had a decent amount of people for them. So it was good to get everybody's input. Like Ron's talked about this, like a growth discussion. That's something I've wanted to do for a while. And again, this is a bad year to try and do that. If we get past some of this COVID, where we can have major, meetings, I would try and do the same thing. I mean, even this comp plan says they had open public meetings, and they did, you did, at the time, a mailer, I guess, or a form, I guess online, because
It was pretty active.
it said they had 480 responses, that's what this says.
It was
You know, 500 people is pretty good.
Pretty good,
You know,
that's standard.
500 households, responded, so I think that's pretty good. 1 out of 8 people in town, and that even includes kids, at that point, what the population was. So I think that was a good response. And, we may, before we make any changes or amendments to it, that may be what we want to do, is have that kind of discussion.
See, my thinking is.
You could do that in any year, though. I mean, you could do that any month, any year.
Well,
You could-
yeah, but just in a practical sense, what if something, anything, the council or anything's controversial, and you can only get 16 people in here, what do you do? I mean,
That's the way it is. You
I
make a
know,
decision.
I mean, but in something like us, we don't have to do anything right now.
I think
Do
if
we
COVID-
wait until?
I think if COVID was over and we advertised, well-publicized meeting about the company, we'd have good attendance.
I think so, I think we'd have more than 16,
And I
is my
think
point.
if we
I
can,
agree.
I think we'll have
I
more
think
than
if we can
16.
delay a decision on
So-
what we want to do here
Yeah.
till COVID is done, then people can come.
That's why I
All we're
said,
required to do is review.
Right.
We could talk about these items, if you went through it even more detail before next meeting, before November's meeting. You say, like I wrote down,
we can
page
talk-
11, page 27, page 31, 39, 63. These are the ones I thought I'd discuss it
Right.
that way with you.
Right.
But we went another direction. If you want to do that, we can continue to do that.
I don't think we need to. I read it, I like it.
Okay.
I think our comprehensive plan is pretty good for our town. I think it says what people want it to say.
We put a lot of work in that thing when, back in 2010. You moved it, you were here, right?
Yeah.
Were you here, Ron?
Yeah, I was, but I
You were
think
there, I mean,
there's
my
a
third
major,
year.
I think there's
Huh?
a major
My third
conflict. I
That
think
was your
that,
third year?
No, I've been here 20, so 21.
I think there's a major
This is my
conflict.
third time having the review.
Yeah.
And I think that I didn't really quite understand, I don't think many people understand that if we fill up all we got, the very beginning of the comp plan, which says their quality of life doesn't exist anymore. So I think there's a conflict with the plan itself.
You think we have too much growth?
I think we better talk about do we think we have too much size?
Well, see, I agree with you. I don't like all that growth area.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm saying we need to emphasize getting with the county and buying rights and
Right.
reducing.
I was just commenting when you said, I think it's all good right here. I'm just saying, I think there's a
You're right,
conflict.
you're right,
Yeah.
you're right.
That's all.
Maybe we
Okay.
need to clarify that.
Yeah.
Can we move on, Mr. Chairman?
What do you have next?
Thomas, Commissioner.
Did you have anything you wanted to address on the, you said by page, or you're referring to us going that way?
We could do that, but I think in general, you've already kind of talked about those things. So.
How about the design standards? Do we have any hope of any accomplishing that, or?
You need a draft document
Yes,
from us.
yes.
We had one, didn't we? And then we kind of just didn't get it.
Yeah, we don't have, because the money was
And
spent
if
on
the
something
economy
else.
No,
stays like this, people are
Well-
coming. We better be
We
ready.
did come up with it, but it's not in a published form, so I need to get that too, and then we can adopt that.
Still with us, Austin?
I am. Learning a lot, thank you.
I think the things that you had here, the different bullet points, the ones that I highlighted, that I am concerned about and want to deal with, would be all involved in that discussion about growth areas.
Yeah.
So I think,
No, that's why they were first.
That's where the.
everything else, I think, for the most part, we just change the date, like we have been doing.
Maybe change the credits at the beginning of the comp plan. Give you some credit, Dave, put your name on top of it now, so.
I mean, yeah, we're gonna have to do it at some point, but that's why I put them at the top, growth areas right at the top.
Right.
And you see, I put sustainability of town service and the draft resilient element last. Kind of figured you didn't have a taste for that. Commercial development should probably be up there with the growth areas, but.
Right.
I mean, commercial development is number one, what you can really, right?
Well, you know, and the
I mean,
the
probably
comp,
by tax base, I mean.
Right, right.
the comp plan addresses commercial development, that, you know, so that you have the appropriate level of town services for the residents, whether you have any more residential or not, you know, in those growth areas, it addresses it to be encouraged. So that's something else you have to think about. We have the pipe, as you've been saying, so that's why commercial development flocks to Berlin, because the county doesn't have a lot of available parcels to offer, well, you know, for water and sewer, and the town does. If in those growth areas, they get annexed in, then the town has the pipe for them.
So in that way.
That's always been why we're attractive for these.
So in that way, think of who has the power here.
We should have.
Who's got the bite?
We know that.
So when people come to us, we shouldn't say, oh, please. We should say, this is what we need, because we have what you want. We don't exercise our power, I think, all too often.
And it also says, when you talk about a green belt and an urban growth area, it says those areas that are in the growth areas, in other words, not in town right now, if they were to be annexed, the annexation should make it a requirement that you have a 250-foot or 350-foot undeveloped buffer area on the edge of your property. That part goes in that green part of the map. In other words, if you need parking spaces out there, you can't build parking spaces out there. Come up with another configuration, because we want it to stay green. We want it to be undisturbed.
That really
So
isn't.
but that's part of what's in here.
I read that. It goes 250 to 1,000 feet was recommended.
To 1,000, right, you know.
And that's not adequate. We need to buy those lands and have them as
Well,
farm
thank
fields.
you. I agree, but
A
I think
250-foot wide green strip is just
nothing.
not going to accomplish what we want to accomplish.
But to your.
But that's what we have.
To your
We
point,
have something,
Dave,
yeah.
to your point, Dave, though, you said if we annex them. I think, you know, the law is not, we have to annex you if you want sewer.
Nope.
So,
You request annexation.
so I still think we have control, because if we have a good relationship with the applicant and the Worcester County Planning Commission, we can all come out with a deal where that looks like a pretty good thing we can get behind. Yeah, we'll sell you water and sewer. We're not gonna annex you, but we'll sell you water and sewer at a different rate, at a different price, to help retire our debt.
I don't foresee that ever happening.
You don't,
Mayor
okay?
and council have never done that.
Well, they have never done that, but we have a new mayor and council now, and
Well,
just because
but
they
we have-
haven't been done, doesn't mean it can't be done.
I
or won't be
understand.
done.
I
Well,
understand.
I advocated
There's
that.
arguments against that.
There is, I understand.
All around the shore.
And do we not want to discuss those arguments? Because we have a conundrum now where we're being told we have to annex us if you want to control us. That's the argument
That's
we hear all
the
the time.
situation we find ourselves in.
That's the situation, because the mayor and council,
Yeah.
yesterday, that's the way they did it.
But that would only happen where we don't have the leverage of the pipe. Follow me? You know, if,
We could sell, tell me if I'm wrong, we could supply water and sewer to a county property or a property owner in the county adjacent to town.
that's correct.
Okay,
It's in the code
okay,
that the mayor and council may, and they would charge them double,
exactly.
but they've never done it.
But see, I advocated
You
that.
have to ask for that permission, and it's never been done.
I
I don't care if
advocated,
it's never been done, it can be done, right?
It's in the code.
Okay, then.
I advocated for that when they did Decatur. Because
Exactly.
the county wanted sewer and water out there, but Rex Haley, who was the mayor then, said, oh, no, we have to annex them to run the sewer pipe
Exactly.
out there. Huh?
For what?
You didn't have to.
Exactly.
I told him, I said,
In that case,
I
you
said,
don't.
sell the county the sewer and water and make them maintain their own pipe. 'cause
Help
he
us
got
pay
the-
our debt.
Right, you know, and.
Well, separate situation
And they
there.
said they would
Because
never,
it's
we
taxes.
never have to give any police protection, we never have to collect the trash, guess what? Now we got a resource officer out there, Berlin's paying for all that stuff out
They
there.
annex and
But-
give service.
But the difference there is, I agree, and maybe in that case, that shouldn't have happened, right? That you didn't need an annexation. But because there's no real estate taxes to collect, okay? In commercial development, you get paid something for making them annex and giving them services.
Sure.
In this case, with the high school, it's an exempt organization. Just like if a church were to say, we're gonna develop this parcel.
Because Berlin cops would be out there anyway.
Well, yeah, but you still didn't have to, the county would have to pay for any repairs on the pipe.
Correct.
One out there was a long pipe one way out there. It made no sense to annex that when we could have sold the sewer.
I wouldn't, if I was here then, I wouldn't have agreed with that either, because you're not getting anything out of it. By the time 20 years goes by or 30 years goes by, the doubling of the water and sewer gallons wouldn't cover that anyway. The maintenance required and the manpower required, the services required. So why do it if you weren't?
It was for the children.
But
But the.
to what end? I don't understand
But
that.
certainly, the county had the money, I mean, the county could have taken care of their own expenses and just paid, all we do is collect a check for the sewer and water. And that was, should have been done, but we had a.
I agree. But
Anti-Ramex Rex.
see, but this is the point that I'm making with Ron is, yeah, we can do that, but why would we? Why?
Well,
If we're giving them services anyway, why wouldn't we collect for the? Now, this is opposite of the argument you
If it
usually
was a
make to me.
residential subdivision, way out there, and we have to provide services to them, then we really would think about it, wouldn't we?
We don't have to provide any services.
We don't, but if we want.
It doesn't get built without us.
If we want to help retire our water and sewer debt, it makes sense. I'm not saying to do it, I'm just saying the discussion, I think, could happen.
It could happen, and it has happened,
It's just.
I get asked that 5-6 times a year
I bet.
by people.
I bet. They don't want to be annexed. Why would they want to pay the tax?
And I always, I said that the code says you can come before the mayor and council and ask permission.
And they never.
But I would not count on it,
No.
because it's never been done here. It's been done in emergency situations out on Flower Street Extended out in Brittletown. There's several of them that the county came to the town 15, 18 years ago, I don't know exactly what year, and they had emergency situations with their septics failing, and they needed to help them out, so they connected those, I don't know, I think it's 3 or 4 houses, to the town system. And that's the only one that I know of in, ever.
All right, can we move on?
Really?
You have anything else, or?
No, isn't that enough?
Anybody? I just have one question for Ron. You talk about, you're gonna, the infill lots or whatever is available in Berlin already. How do you force somebody to build something, or
You don't force anybody to do it.
I'm just saying you don't
I'm not
force, you say you
forcing
build
anybody
with, you build from within or whatever.
I'm not talking about forcing anybody to do anything.
I know that, I'm just saying, how do you, if nobody wants to build anything.
Well, one thing you can do is say, here's a good example right here. Kirk Burbridge owns, I'm not suggesting that he do this or we do this, but
Mhm.
to answer your question, Kirk Burbridge owns 3 lots here.
Mm-hmm,
Let's say they're 50-foot wide.
yeah.
He has 1, 2, 3 rights,
Mhm.
right? We say to him, no, we're gonna cut you up, instead of 3 50-foot lots, 5 30-foot lots, 2 stories. You now have 10 rights. So maybe Kirk doesn't want to build anything there, but the value of his property, it's called a givings, I guess, rather than a taking.
Mhm.
The value of his property went up, so maybe Kirk says, gee, maybe I can sell it to somebody who does and get my profit out of it. So that's one way to incentivize growth inside town.
But don't you pay for water and sewer rights for each individual piece of property, whether you're building it or not, or is that
Each
not?
dwelling unit.
Yeah.
Didn't they reduce property lines on people that had double lots, and said you want to continue to pay
They said,
for the sewer
Mr.
and water?
Cudbane, you're either in line
Yeah.
or not.
Didn't they do a purge of that a couple of years, 5, 10 years ago, whatever it was?
Yeah,
Just to, for the water and
See if they're in
sewer,
or not,
start
yeah.
reducing the debt.
We have a ready-to-serve fee, which is a minimum water and sewer fee you pay each month until you're ready to use it.
Yes,
And that locks in your price for that EDU at the month that you started paying that. So today, an EDU, which gives you the right to hook up to water and sewer for a house, let's say, a single-family house, is $16,686 in town.
for residential.
Right.
Mhm.
Now, like Walnut Hill, when it was permitted and started, the people there, I'm just using Ron as an example, most of them started paying ready-to-serves years ago, and they would have locked in their, was it 2008 or 2009?
Three
It really was 3?
or four.
Okay, so it locked them in at like $9,700. So an EDU on one of those lots, if they're to transfer, that's a bargain for somebody today. They just saved $7,900, not quite half. There's ones in town on some of the other subdivisions. We get, the other number we get a lot, and I'll show you the jump after several years of the EDU price at $5,800. But for,
And then you buy a tear down and you got it for free.
there's one assigned to every home already, right? If you buy a tear down, you just save $16,000.
As long as it's been a year since they paid, they're ready to serve, right?
Right, and, but the ready-to-serve fee, someone's been on an empty lot, let's say in Walnut Hill, they've been paying that, I think it's $38 now, every month for 16 years, but that doesn't bring the price down, that just locked it in at that price.
Yeah, I
And,
get
and
that.
keeps me in line,
Right,
saves my spot.
right, that's right, in
But
the
some-
capacity, so they can never tell you.
Right.
Because we have reserved EDUs, not used
So
EDUs.
you're saying that there's empty lots in the best development in town, been empty for 30-some years?
No, 16, I guess.
But a lot of people gave up those their lot lines and property lines, because they didn't want to pay the $38 a month for.
They had no intention to develop it, yeah.
Exactly, so that's what I'm just saying, they purged the town, but then there's still other ones that are,
They might have,
they might never build on it.
and
Yeah,
some
there are-
other
there are-
property now might want it.
It just seems unrealistic to
There are
say that
platted-
you need to fill from within if nobody's building anything, how do you do that? If nobody wants to build anything?
Well, because I think we pretty much have a zoning code that doesn't allow too much more.
I know in town, I'm just saying, you wouldn't annex anything else until everything else in town is built, so everything in town is not built.
You fall asleep?
I never understood that the reasoning behind that.
The reason behind.
I understand you want to fill
from
the,
within,
you want to fill the empty lots in towns, I get that, but
you know,
to say this needs to be full before we do this over here.
We're not saying it has to be full before you.
Let's say that.
Well, that just seems to be the narrative, not from you, from other, from townspeople or whatever, that's the way I've interpreted it.
I wouldn't agree with that philosophy. We
No,
won't
I don't
encourage
agree with it, I'm just saying it's out there, like it's some kind of you need to fill in from here before you can do this, or
Well, tell me if
whatever.
I'm wrong, but I think part of why we have these growth areas and why we grow a lot of times is because everybody up until now said, well, we have to increase our tax base. So we gotta go get some more. That's what I've seen up until now.
That's the
But
stupidest thing.
we still don't have enough. We still aren't sustaining our systems with what we already have. So we have to go out and get some more, and then it sounds like we're not doing a good job of taking care of what we already have.
Okay, does anybody else have anything, or Dave, anything?
No, I'm good.
Any questions from the public? Can you go cricket sound for us?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? All in favor?
All right.
So Chris, how many do you have on there?
Return to TVO.
3? What if the town came to you and said you got
Three.
16?
Return to
I have
TVO.
three lots.
Okay, so it's not much to you says you got 16 EDUs.
Anybody else?
Hey, how you doing?
No, I get it because.
But you incentivize,
Yeah, I'm on.
by changing the zone.